A question has been put forward, one that I feel you must be asking yourself if you are looking at your own life with any seriousness at all. The question is this: my behavior indicates that I am afraid, yet the actual perception of fear is elusive. How do I reach and deal with this deep seated but unconscious emotion? This is not a trivial question, and I ask you to consider it with me now, because this problem of fear is not yours alone, nor is it mine. It has existed from time immemorial, a dark thread woven into the very fabric of human consciousness. Man has lived with it perhaps for millions of years, and we have all, consciously or in those hidden recesses of the mind, tried to find a way to live with this constant companion. And if you observe yourself, you will see that our primary responses to it are escape, suppression, or a kind of dull neglect. We escape from it through logic, building intricate intellectual arguments about why it exists, which does nothing to resolve it. We escape through analysis, tracing it back to our childhood, to an incident, to our society, yet the fear remains. And perhaps most pervasively in our modern world, we escape through any form of entertainment or distraction that helps us to avoid coming directly into contact with it, to hold it, and to look at it. We fill our lives with noise, with endless scrolling through social media, with the pursuit of pleasure or the drama of other people's lives, all in a desperate attempt to not be alone with this elusive, gnawing emotion. We suppress it, we use our will to push it down, to pretend it isn't there, to put on a brave face, while internally we are shrinking, or perhaps worst of all, we simply neglect it. We say, so what? I have lived with fear my whole life. Everyone lives with it. It's just part of being human. So what does it matter now? But I ask you, does it not matter? One knows the consequences of fear if one is at all honest. You can feel it in the body, can't you? That physical shrinkage, the tightening in the chest, the knot in the stomach. You can see it in our relationships, the tendency to become hypocritical, to say one thing and do another, because we are afraid of the consequences of being honest. You see the resistance, the immediate no that rises when a new idea is presented, the avoidance of the simple fact that one is deeply, truly afraid. So if you and I really profoundly want to be free from that entire reaction we call fear, not just trim its edges, but be utterly finished with it, we have to go to the very root of it. We know there are biological fears, of course. The organism, the body, must protect itself from immediate physical danger. There is the fear of disease, the fear of old age, and the decay of the body, and the ultimate fear of death. And then there are all the fears that are born from past memories, from psychological hurts and accumulated experiences. This fear, in all its forms, is the common ground upon which all human beings stand, regardless of their culture, their beliefs, or their status. Therefore, we are faced with a choice. Either we deal with it superficially, or we must inquire into it very, very deeply. And this is a serious question you must answer for yourself, because the superficial path is endless. What are the forms of fear? You know them well. The fear of tomorrow, the fear of uncertainty, the fear of complete psychological insecurity, the fear of not being loved Oh, the terror of loving and not receiving that love in return. The profound, aching fear of loneliness, of ending one's days with no one. The fear of loss, the fear of not having anyone to depend on, the fear of public speaking, the fear of the dark. There is the fear of a bully, that constant pressure of an aggressive, perhaps slightly demented person in your life, whether it's a boss, a partner, or a political figure, and how that pressure makes you lie, makes you twist yourself into shapes to survive. I ask you, do we want to deal with these outward forms of fear one by one? Do we want to deal with it intellectually, verbally, finding a new technique for this fear, a new comfort for that one? If you choose that path, it is like trying to prune a monstrous tree. The moment you cut down one branch, the fear of your boss, you find another one has risen, the fear of loneliness, you cut that one, and the fear of death appears. It is a perpetual, endless flowering of fear. Or do we want to go into it by observing its very nature, its structure, how it comes into being? If we want to deal with it deeply, to go to the very root of it, then we must ask, what is the root of fear? Please, I am not telling you, the speaker is not pointing out some dogma for you to accept. We are together, you and I, right now, investigating into a tremendously complicated problem that has crippled humanity. And you must see that out of this fear, we have done all kinds of things. Out of this terror of uncertainty, of loneliness, of death, we have invented all the gods on earth. Thought, seeing this emptiness, this void, this profound insecurity, projected an image of absolute security, of a father figure, of a higher power, of a plan, of an afterlife, to give itself comfort. If there is absolutely no psychological fear, then you are beyond all gods, because you have no need for a comforter. So, looking at all this, what is basically the root of all fear? I am asking, I am questioning with you, is it time and thought? So we are asking, you and I, investigating together into this thing that has crippled humanity, what is the root of fear? I am questioning, not asserting, but asking you to look with me, is it time? And is it also thought? Let's please investigate this, not as a theory, but as something we can observe in ourselves. Is it time, the future, or the past? The future is time. The past is time. The past, which is nothing more than memory, constantly modifies itself in the fleeting moment of the present, and from there it projects itself towards tomorrow, which we call the future. Think about it in your own life. You have a remembrance of an incident, perhaps something that happened last week or even 20 years ago, an incident that caused you great pain, embarrassment, or a sharp shock of fear. The remembrance of that incident, which is the past living and operating within your mind right now, awakens a new fear, the fear that this same thing might happen again in the future. Are you following this? Am I just talking to myself? Or are we meeting each other on this extraordinary problem? This movement, this unbroken line from the past through the present to the future, is the horizontal field upon which Almost all of our psychological life is lived and played out. So there is this constant movement of fear. We are afraid of the past, aren't we? We are afraid of something we did that we are ashamed of, or a pain we suffered so deeply that we build our entire lives around, never experiencing it again. And we are afraid of the present, perhaps now more than ever. We feel the instability. We read the news and see the threats of war, the bomb, the staggering economic uncertainty, the sheer madness of our tribal conflicts. One great group against another, politicians playing their games with our lives. And of course, flowing from all this, we are terrified of the future. This entire movement, past, present, and future, is time. Just as going from here, from this point to that village across the valley requires time to travel, we also believe that to go from what I am, which I dislike, to what I should be, which is my ideal, also requires time. So we must ask again, is time, this psychological movement from what has been to what might be, one of the fundamental factors of fear? Logically, rationally, sanely, when I observe my own mind, it absolutely seems to be. And then what about thought? Is thought also the root of fear? I think tomorrow might bring me unemployment. Right now, in this actual moment, I am employed. I have a job, I have a degree of security, but thought, which is this restless machine of projection, casts itself into the future, into a tomorrow that does not yet exist, and it creates a vivid image of me without that job, me without that security. The thinking about it, while I am factually and actually secure in the present, is the very birth of fear. Are you following the mechanics of this? Or I think about the past. I remember the incidents, the psychological accidents, the harsh words, the failures, the hurts that have brought about these patterns of fear. The thinking about that past, the dwelling on it, the chewing on it, the reliving of it. That action of thought brings all the dead pain of yesterday into the living present. So, thought, by its very nature, thinking about the past and thinking about the future, seems to be the engine that breeds fear. So, time and thought, are they the major factors? And if they are, and as in reality, if we look honestly, they are, then what on earth is one to do? You understand my problem, don't you? Are we meeting each other here? You may have listened to me explain this, that time and thought are the root of fear. I have gone into it, I have explained it, and perhaps you have nodded along and captured the meaning of what I have said. But now, this is the critical point. What have you done with that statement? You have to ask yourself, is this just an idea I have accepted? Are these just words that I find intellectually appealing? Or, from listening to what I have said, have you, perhaps without even noticing, made an abstraction of it into an idea, and now you are left struggling with that idea? This is the most subtle and dangerous trap we fall into. You now possess a new concept, a new conclusion. Time and thought are the root of fear. And because you have this idea, the next logical question for you is, how am I to put that idea into action? How am I supposed to stop time? How am I going to stop thinking? You see the conflict you have created. We have this deeply ingrained habit of making abstractions from a living fact. Those abstractions become our ideals, our concepts, our conclusions, and they're all purely verbal, existing only in the field of thought. And then we spend the rest of our lives asking, how am I to carry out these ideals? How do I bridge the gap between my idea and my reality? I am asking you, please do not do that. Do not make an abstraction of what you have heard. Do not translate this investigation into a dead idea, but rather find out the truth of it, the actuality of it, for yourself in your own life. This means, you see, with the clarity of direct perception, that you really are afraid of the past. It is a fact, like that tree is a fact. You see that you are afraid of the present because things are so incredibly destructive and uncertain all around you. And you see as a total fact that you are afraid of tomorrow, the future, the atom bomb, the unstable economy, the mad terrorists, the political games, and the potential for personal loss and loneliness. When you see this, you are seeing the fact, not the idea, that time and thought are the root of fear. This is not some romantic, idealistic, or philosophical notion, all of which has no meaning whatsoever. It is seeing the actual living truth of what we are investigating together. Now, if you have gone that far, if you have actually seen this truth for yourself, not as a concept you have learned, but as a fact you perceived, then a much deeper difficulty arises. A much more profound question must be asked. Who is the observer who actually sees this fact? So I ask you, and you must ask yourself, if you have seen the fact that time and thought are the architects of your fear, who is this entity that sees it? Who is this observer, this I, this center, who stands apart and says, ah, yes, I see the truth of it? This is perhaps the most crucial question in this entire investigation, because I ask you, is this observer, this I, in any way different from the fact that he is observing? When I say, yes, I see the truth, that time and thought are the root of fear, have I not already played a most subtle and dangerous trick on myself? I have positioned myself, the me, as the one who sees, and I have positioned the truth as something out there, an object which is seen. In that very statement, I have created a division, a space, a distance between the observer and the observed, and in that space, the entirety of human conflict is born. Let me try to put this much more simply, in a way you can watch in your own daily life. When I am overcome by a flash of anger, in that precise white-hot moment of reaction, is there an I who is angry? Or is there, in that instant, only the state of anger itself, this tremendous consuming reaction? If you look very closely, you will see there is just the anger. But then, few seconds later, perhaps even a fraction of a second later, thought, which is memory, comes in and says, I have been angry. In that moment, thought has divided itself. It has created the me as the entity who was angry, and it has objectified the anger as something separate from it, something that happened to it. You see this? The me is created after the fact, as a center of judgment and control. So when I listen to this investigation and I say, yes, I see the truth of it, I am doing the exact same thing, the perception of that truth is instantly translated into an experience, an object, something out there, and I am here, the watcher, the accumulator, the one who has understood. But I ask you to consider something entirely different. What if there is no observer at all, but only the fact of it? What if there is only the perception of fear without the I who is afraid? Can you understand the profound difference? Are we meeting each other on this? When I observe that tree in the garden, a flurry of words immediately springs up. That's an oak tree. It's a lovely shape. It's not as tall as the one I saw yesterday. The very naming of that tree, the classification of it, which is the action of my past knowledge, of my memory, actually prevents me from looking at the tree in its totality, in its living newness. If I go to a museum and see a painting by one of the old masters, and I immediately begin to compare, to judge, this is good, but it's not as profound as that other painter. I am not looking at the actual painting at all. I am lost in the network of my own comparative knowledge. So when I observe, when I see the truth of what we have been discussing, if that seeing is real, there is no division between the observer and the observed. There is only the truth of it. Not I see it and I put it to you, that perception, which is holistic, total, and non-divided, is the only thing that frees the mind from fear completely. But this is extraordinarily difficult, isn't it? Because this is not what we actually do. Let's look at our actual daily conditioning. Suppose I am afraid, my immediate conditioned response, the response of millennia, is to act upon it. I must do something about it. I try to control it, to grip it, to hold it down. I try to rationalize it, to find reasons for it. I try to escape from it, turning on the television, seeking a crowd, going to a place of worship, scrolling endlessly. Or I go to somebody, a therapist, a priest, an expert, to help me resolve it. I am always acting on it. Is that not clear? This is what we are all doing, all the time, acting upon our fear, either to dissipate it, or to control it, or to run away from it, or to suppress it. And this very acting upon it is the conflict. Because now there is a duality. There is me, the one who is acting, and there is fear, the thing that is being acted upon. And so I am in a battle with myself, struggling not to be afraid, which is the very essence of conflict. So my question to you and to myself must now change. It is no longer how do I get rid of fear, but rather, can this conflict end? Can this division between me and the fear, this division which inevitably brings this perpetual struggle, can that end? Why does this division exist at all? Is it an actual biological, neurological fact? Or is it merely semantic, verbal, a clever, illusory trick that thought has played? Is it possible that thought, not being able to solve the problem of fear, has cleverly divided itself into two parts? The me, who is the controller, the seeker, the courageous one, and the fear, which is the cowardly, base thing that must be overcome. I'm sorry if this seems complex. You have probably never thought about all this in this particular way. But it is tremendously important to resolve this conflict because we live our entire psychological lives in this field of duality. Don't we? I am this afraid, lonely, confused, envious, but I should be that courageous, loved, enlightened, generous. This gap between what is and what should be is the field of all our conflict, all our misery, all our effort. So I want to find out for myself, and I am asking you to find out for yourself, can this conflict end? And to find that out, we must ask an even deeper question. Is there in reality such a thing as an opposite? I'm afraid. The opposite, I say, is not to be afraid or to have courage. But is there an opposite to fear? Or is there only the ending of fear and not the arrival of its opposite? We are asking you and I if there is an opposite to fear at all, or if courage is merely another invention of thought, another ideal, another what should be that we strive for, which in itself maintains the conflict. If I am afraid and I try to be courageous, I am still in battle, am I not? I am using effort, will, and suppression to become courageous, which is just another form of resistance against what is. And that resistance is fear. So I'm not interested in the opposite, which is a sterile mental projection. I am interested, and I hope you are too, in the total ending of fear, which means the ending of this central, devastating conflict. And I see very clearly that this conflict can only end when the division between me and the fear ends. But how can it end? If I try to end it, if I try to bridge the gap, then I am the agent of action, and therefore I am still in conflict with it. My very effort to end the conflict is the conflict, right? So the me, the I, the observer, the controller cannot possibly be the agent of this freedom. This must be seen with absolute penetrating clarity. So we must go deeper. We must ask, who is this me? What is this me that is always trying to suppress, control, dominate, or escape from fear? Is it not simply a bundle of memories, experiences, and knowledge from the past? Let me put it this way, and I ask you to please listen to this very carefully, not just to the words, but to the truth of it in your own life. If I am married, I meet my wife or my husband or my partner every day. Day after day, I begin to know her. I know how she looks, what her gestures are, the words she uses, her habits, her reactions, her pleasures, and her pains. Through all our shared incidents, through every argument and every moment of tenderness, I have built up a vast storehouse of knowledge, of memory about her. This knowledge, this accumulation is the past. Are you following this? So, whenever I look at her, all of this accumulated knowledge, this entire screen of memory comes rushing out between us. I am not actually looking at her, the living, breathing, changing person who is there in this moment at all. The past is looking at her. The image I have built of her is what I see, and that image is what I have my relationship with. This knowledge, which is the past, is the me. the me who has been pleased by her or hurt by her. This me has separated itself from her through this screen of remembrance. Physically, of course, we are two different organisms, but psychologically, I have created this division, and the me is that very division. Now, we do exactly the same thing with this reaction we call fear. The past remembrances of all our fears, the past remembrance of every psychological accident, every threat, every shock, every moment of insecurity is stored in the brain as memory. That brain, which is the past, is constantly remembering, constantly on the watch. So the moment a new reaction arises in the present, a reaction of a similar quality, the brain immediately recognizes it from its archive, names it, and says, that is fear. The moment it recognizes and names it from the past, it has already captured it, recorded it as fear, and placed it within that old dead pattern. You must follow this. The observer, the me, is the past. The me says, I know what that is. I have had it so many times. I must control it. I must run from it. So the observer is time. The observer is thought. The observer, therefore, is the very root of the fear itself. When you see this fact, the entire question changes. The question is no longer how can I get rid of fear, because you see that I am the fear. The question therefore becomes, can there be an observation of this reaction without the past? Is there an observation of this feeling without the word fear, without the naming, without the recognition, without the memory of all the other 1,000 fears you have had? When the past observes, when the me observes, you are simply maintaining the same old movement, the same old conflict, the same old bondage. You are using an energy that has already been employed year after year, an energy that is old, stale, and mechanical, which is a terrible and constant wastage of energy. But I am asking, and you must ask, is there a new energy? Is there a new quality of observation, an observation that can meet this reaction without the entire shadow of the past coming with it? I will put it in another way. One sees, if one has looked into this at all, that fear exists only when there is inattention. I don't mean the inattention of a schoolboy, but a deep psychological inattention. Our brains have been conditioned not to give complete attention to this reaction. We are conditioned to analyze it, rationalize it, escape it, or control it, all of which are forms of profound inattention. They are movements away from the fact. But what happens if you give complete attention to fear? And by attention, I do not mean the me paying attention to fear, because that is still the division, the observer and the observed. I mean a state of total attention, a state of awareness in which the observer is not. Attention means giving your whole energy, your whole being to look, not to analyze, not to judge, not to rationalize, not to escape, and crucially, not to observe from the past. It is an observation that is entirely in the living present, fresh, new, and immediate. When you do that, when there is that quality of total holistic energy, then you will see for yourself fear is not, it doesn't dissolve. It isn't conquered. It simply is not, because the me, the past, the memory, which is the very structure of fear, is absent A mind that lives with fear is a destructive, aggressive, neurotic mind living in perpetual conflict, but a mind that is utterly free of fear psychologically. That is an extraordinary, new, and truly intelligent mind. Thank you for journeying with me into this inquiry. If this investigation has stirred something in you, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel for more.